Hello, and welcome to another episode of Set-4-Life Conversations, where we help you get your mind right and your money right by discussing life strategies for the everyday person. I'm your host, Thomas Lacoma, and each episode will spend some time with financial advisor, pastor, and motivational speaker, published author, and former college athlete, George Thompson, as he shares with us wisdom that you can put into practice today. In today's episode, we discuss the importance of finishing what you start. George shares some practical tips on how to improve your success rate when reaching for your goals. Okay, good morning, George. How are you today?
Man, I'm doing awesome. How you doing, Thomas?
I'm doing all right. So today, I was thinking about a couple of things because even at my job, sometimes it gets really crazy, and I end up with a lot of projects that kind of started, but I look through my to-do list and they're still there. I haven't completed them, or they need to either be taken off the list or I need to take them to their end. So I was thinking about something that you always talk about, which is this whole idea of the finishers club. So today, what I wanted to talk about is how do you help people finish what they started? I know that's one of the things that you
I'm
tell
going
your
to try
kids
my
to
hardest.
say, right?
I'm going to try my hardest not to
Yeah.
stand up and jump around. But everybody, whatever you're doing, if you're listening to this podcast or doing things, please pull out a little bit of notes. I'm just telling you in advance because I may start talking fast because I get excited about this. This is something, like you have a scripture like Jeremiah 29:11, where, or you have a scripture or something that just really, sits with you and everything. There are certain things that I think are very important. And one of them is to finish what you start. And this is something that my dad told me when I was very young. So as you know, and then there's a recording of that, is that I teach my kids 4 things and they can come and say them at any time. The first is be on time. We're not covering that today, but that's one of the first things is you need to be on time and also be early. I think that is worth financially over $1 million in your life by coming places before they start. Speaking engagements, I show up earlier. I speak to the speakers. I talk to the people. Then afterwards, when everybody else is getting their autograph, I already have their phone number and everything, and I'm to the next thing. So be on time. And then number 2 is finish what you start. Then number 3 is do what you say you're going to do. But that's very similar to finish what you start. And I'll come back to that. And then the 4th is say please and thank you. And that's do good while you're doing it. But today you asked about finish what you start. I have impressed my kids upon that. And I think that's what separates people is the ability to finish what you start. In other words, that's a measurement. You have a dashboard in your car. That's a thing. It's performance. It's how it works. And by the way, it's because there's something called I know you've heard me say this before. There's something called a starters club. And then I want everyone also to tell me what you have in Starter Club. But I'm just going to tell you the top 3 I hear every day is I'm going to go to college. I'm going to graduate from college. I'm going to stay married, relationships. So it's education, relationships, and then all day long I get money. I'm going to retire in 5 years. But this is the challenge. Everyone says it, but then how do you finish it? Remember, Starters Club, Finishers Club. And that's why, so first of all is that how you do this is quite simply, write this down, is desire, focus, accountability, consistency. And I'll walk you through that. You first of all have to have the desire. And by the way, when you start something, quitting is not an option. You only adjust. So you have to just say you're going to do that. And you start this and you breathe. So this is part of with my children. And now with the coronavirus, everything that's going on, my kids signed up for basketball. And then they said one time that they wanted to stop. Or you've heard me say this time when my son was doing karate and he said, I went on about the fighting gear. And he said, I want to fight, Daddy. I want to fight. I bought the gear. And he said, okay, I don't want to fight. I said, oh, I'm sorry, son. But once we say we're going to do something, we're going to do it. But once we start, we're going to finish. We don't quit in the middle of the season. We don't play two games and then decide that we aren't doing it. I tell you, the other day, my daughter was running a couple of times when we were working at, she was running and a little bead of sweat fell. And she said, Dad, I have to stop running. Some sweat came. I said, honey, this called working out. Then she came back and said, somebody stepped in front of her in line. We're at the Y. Someone stepped in front of her. And that's why she's not playing. I said, sweetheart, they're going to be stepping in front of you. Go back over there and step in front of them.
Mhm.
And then she came back over later and the ball hit and then hit her in the head. And she came back over and cried. And I said, we don't cry and quit. We
Yeah.
cry and keep going.
Yeah.
And then the coach came over and then put the whistle on me and said, "You not." They wanted me to," because he asked me where I played because he saw how I started going through the ritual of, because I guess there are people that the kids cry and then they can go home. I was like,
Oh yeah.
oh, I'm like,
Oh,
you can
I've
cry,
seen that
you
happen.
can cry.
I've been
Oh,
there.
you wait,
Yeah.
you can cry and go home.
Hmm.
That and screaming loud and not doing it, does that work? Thomas, if that works, then let me know. Everybody, I use Southern California Edison. I'm going on an electric company right now and go. I'm going to go down to the cable electric company and stand in the lobby and go like this. I'm not going to pay it. I'm not going to pay the bill. I'm not going to pay the bill, and the bill go away. And
It's still there.
no,
Still there.
we don't quit.
Yeah, I mean, what you're saying is very similar to what my wife and I have always done with our kids. So when they are looking at doing a new activity, it could be a musical instrument, a sport, whatever it is. We always told them, okay, you tell me you want to do this thing. Once we start it, we're gonna finish out this thing, right? And finish out can be different depending on the thing. So, like with the musical instruments, they had to play it for at least a year.
Mhm.
There wasn't any of this, I started doing piano and I don't really like it, so we're in the middle because you pay session by session. So I
Right,
could end it after 2 months, but
right,
that's not what's happening in this
right,
household. We're gonna go all the way through. If you picked a sport, you're doing that sport until the season is over at a minimum.
right.
So what with my son, he is in Taekwondo, and
Yeah,
for us, the finishing in Taekwondo is to get that black belt.
right.
We're
And
not
he's been doing
doing
that for a
this
minute. Right,
until he's been doing it for years now. But until once he gets his black belt, whatever he wants to do after that, if he wants to say Taekwondo season is done for me, I'm moving on to something else. We feel like he's got the full completion of that task, that mission.
right.
I actually, I don't know if you saw. I posted something on Facebook. I was listening to Will Smith talk about raising his kids and how his dad raised him.
Right,
He told this story. It blew me away, and it kind of gives you a sense of why Will Smith is as successful as he is. Now, his
right,
dad was a harsh disciplinarian because he
right,
was a military guy. Some of the ways he ran things, Will was like, I wouldn't do that with my kids.
right.
But he told this one story where his dad sent him to the store to buy him some cigarettes, and he was like, that was in the days when you could send your
You
kids
can send
to
the.
buy
Okay,
cigarettes.
he
So
was.
he goes to the cigarette store, and the guy, there was a certain brand that his dad smoked, and the guy was out of that brand. So he told him, "Hey, I don't have any of this brand. Can you, you'll have to come back tomorrow." So Will was like, "Okay," and so he steps out of the store, and he's starting to head home, and he sees his friends playing. So he said, "I kind of got distracted, and I started playing with my friends until I looked over and saw my dad with no shirt on." Walking towards and he was like, "Son," and then he said, "When I send you to do something, there's only two options. Either the mission is completed or you're dead." He said there's only two explanations that
Right,
could mean whether or not you did the thing.
right,
Either you completed it or somehow you're no longer alive and that's why it didn't get completed.
right.
I mean, that's an extreme version of that, but he said what put that in his mind is that when you have a mission, complete the mission. That's really what he was trying to
That's
do.
actually not a extreme example because in the military, what I've learned is that you have to complete the mission. If you're to bring ammunition to people, if you do this, that if you don't complete that mission, then lives are on the line,
Hmm.
and it is life or death. And I think a lot of times people don't understand that these goals that we're about to talk that we set for life help you achieve in doing that. They are life and death. Like if you don't achieve it, then that affects how well you're going to do.
Hmm.
And if you look at how in the Bible in John 10:10 it says, "I come that you have life and that abundantly." And then
Mm,
it says a thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy. And one of the things
mm,
that the enemy steal, kills, and destroys, the first is your time. And then also you don't utilize your talent. That's what gets killed. And then what gets steal, and that's kill. And then destroyed is what is your testimony of what you could have done if you would have achieved the goal. So
mm,
no, that's a very good illustration. And then you see how he carried that with him for his whole
mhm.
life. So that's why when you hear us talk about kids and everything, because legacy is like there's things that I learned and then now I apply them, and then you can teach them to someone else. And that's
Yeah,
why we hope that you learn from several things that we go over today. So
yeah,
that's why desire, that's why it's so important is whatever your goal is to be in the starters club has everybody in it. Finishers club has less people in it, but I want to walk you through the tools to help you make sure you get through it. So the
yeah.
first is desire. You got to find something that actually you have the desire to do. And I'm going to do my very best to only mention this one time. I watched the documentary Last Dance from beginning to end with no breaks. Like if my kids, someone came down and talked to me, I would pause it so I'd watch it. I don't know anybody that I have seen, and you can let me know if you've seen someone that had more of a desire to win than Michael Jordan, if you look at how he was actually operating. So he had desire, and then he had focus, and then accountability and consistency. So I want to talk about desire first. Is whatever goal you have to have the desire to actually to do that. So we got to find out you have to want that. If somebody says I want to retire and I want to have $1 million, then they have to want that more than going out to eat every day. You
Mhm.
have to want to work out more than you want to sit down and lay down and do something. It has to have something. If we said to you, hey, I want you to run the Boston Marathon next year, and you have 12 months to do it, then you have to have a desire. So the first thing is that if you're running for something, like I would run for cancer because that's how my
Mhm.
mother, and that would get my heart because I want them to find a cure for that in
Mhm.
doing that. So you want to have the desire. God gives you the desires of your heart. The
Mhm.
second is a focus. And it's
Mhm.
sorry to take some from Ray Charles, but how you make it do what it do. There has to be a focus of, hey, how do I do this? So the desire is you're going to set a goal and then you're
Yeah,
going to do it. Then the focus is how you're going to do it.
yeah.
If you're going to run the Boston Marathon, then okay, I'm going to work out 5 days a week. I'm going to start off by running 1 mile a day. Then I'm going to 3 miles. Then I'm going to do 10 miles a week. Then I'm going to
Mhm.
gradually set this up and in these areas.
Yeah.
Then the third area is accountability. That
Mhm.
means that you have to have a partner, someone that you're accountable for and how you're doing it. And then, sorry to go back to Last Dance, Michael Jordan would make rivalries with people that he just out of thin air. There would be
Mhm.
people that somebody had a good name. This guy played, and I can't remember if it was New York or Milwaukee. He had a really good game one night, and the Bulls lost. Then Jordan came back the next day, and then he had to dominate everybody. He would just use whatever technique he could. He would use. He was accountable to people that didn't even know they were accountable to. They were even accountable to him. It was all in his head. Yeah, he had to create a rivalry. But that got him motivated, hence the
Yeah.
term desire. Because in the end,
Mhm.
he wanted to win
Yeah.
and just in doing that. So we want to set up accountability for you. So typically it's a partner. We've said this before. Right now, in the middle of all the midst of what we're going through right now, we told people to have a prayer partner, someone that you can check in with. Like,
Mhm.
I think a very good example is me and you. We check in, we talk at the same time every
Mhm.
week. We have the same things. We both have our outline. So that means the night before or the week before, we're thinking about what we have to say and we're putting it down and we're
Yeah.
working on it. So there's some accountability. If I said, hey, me and you're just going to talk whenever, okay, we would never get anything done.
Yeah.
You have to operate with
Might go a month
deadlines.
and not talk, and then not
Right,
come together, organize. Same thing.
right,
Part of that accountability is also, at least on my part, we have committed to producing one of these a week. And
right.
so we know that we have to get it together, whatever way. Even when we were going through that emotional time a couple of episodes ago, we still found a way to produce something that would be a blessing to you, all you guys listening, because we've made that accountability, that commitment, and we're accountable to it. Before we continue, I just want to remind you guys, if you're new here, welcome to the show. We release episodes, like I said, every week, usually on Friday morning. If you have a topic that you'd like us to cover on finances, productivity, biblical stewardship, or anything else that you think of as you're listening to us, look for the link in the show notes and where you can drop us a voice message. It's actually a pretty cool functionality. You can do it from your phone just by hitting the link, and we will listen to every one of those and address them. We'd love to cover topics that are relevant to you guys. As you were talking, I was thinking about, if we go back to the idea of desire, there's something that I wrote, I think on one of my Facebook posts this week, around how um, I strongly believe that people take action based on emotion. They need the logic part of it to actually um, make it organized and put order to what they're doing, and to almost convince themselves that's the right thing to do. But the thing that actually makes them take the action is the emotion. Like you
Right.
said, with running, in of itself would be just a, what is that? But
Right.
if you say, I'm running for cancer because my mother passed away from cancer,
Right.
now your heart is there.
Right.
And now when the obstacles come, it's that emotion part of it, that why, that's got your head and your heart connected,
Right.
that makes you push through to
Right.
get stuff done.
That is
And then
so
the
good.
focus is how you take that and now put the logic and order to it, so you can do it in a strategic way.
And that's why we always, in Set-4-Life, one of the biggest, one of the most beautiful things about this is we're showing you how to achieve your goals your way. For Father's Days, we had a thing, we talked about this for Father's Day at our church. We had, it's called Dads in Action, where we had dads go out and do things. And there were dads, man, first of all, one of my goals would be the world's greatest dad. And I said, president of the dads club and this and that. They had guys skydiving. They had dudes over. I was like this. I was tapping out on people. I said, okay, I was with everybody I can't cook really well, but I'm a food handler. And I was
Hmm.
good. I was doing good at the break dance part. I was in there with all the dads that were break dancing. They had a dad who, when he had a son, he was overweight.
Hmm.
This is the best example. He lost 80 pounds when his son turned 5 because he wants to be able to play with his son. So they would
Ah.
show his son jump roping, and then he showed him jump roping. They time lapsed him. And they showed him jump roping. He would barely get over the jump, and then they start showing him like 6'3" and 6 months later, and then how much weight he lost.
Hmm.
Now, Thomas, I'm asking you. I'm sorry, I'm asking all of you. Why did he lose the weight? Did that man like jump roping? Did he like walking every morning? And did he like doing all that and starting to run? Maybe, probably not. He did it because he wanted to be able to play with his son.
Mm.
My kids, I play basketball with them now, and I'm looking, and they're 8 and 6. I think I have about another 3 years before I beat them every day now. And I don't, and by the way, I don't ease up. I don't let them win. I don't do that because I don't teach people. I don't do that. We don't do participation
Mhm.
awards and stuff like that. I play them and I let them know this is a reality. You're gonna
Mhm.
have to beat me. You ain't. I'm not
Yeah.
laying down for nobody. We
Yeah.
play ping pong. I'm beating 21 to nothing. That's how my dad beat me. That's how we doing that till you can win. And then this is the cool part. Now we move to where we're on the same team and we shoot to 21. Now we're going to 31. Yesterday we went to 50. So I'm
Mm.
teaching them how to get that range, and we're showing them.
Yeah.
But hold on. And then wait. I'm learning how to shoot. Why? Because I don't want to just give it up. You know what I mean? Like whenever we get ready, my son's like, I wrestle with him sometimes. I get him because I want him to be tough. I
Yeah.
want them to have that. And that's the first thing I start whenever we get ready to do something. I say, hey, you want a shot at the title? Because I'm the
Mhm.
champion. How you be a champion, right? And then I haven't showed them my gold medal and things like that, but I'm gonna tell them like how you get let me tell you how you get gold medals. Fastest time,
Mhm.
number one way, boxing, defeat a champion. That's how you
Mhm.
become a champion. And this is the
Yeah.
third one, outlast everybody.
Yeah.
Outlast everybody.
Yeah.
And that, I thought, for me personally, that's the one I'm typically going to do. Is I'm going to outlast you. In
Yeah.
college, I wore a weight vest. I walked around for
Yeah.
8 months, 20-pound weight vest. And then season came, I took it off, went to the gym. Everybody, a whole school was standing there. They were like, we just want to know why this guy was wearing it. The first month I wore it, everybody was like, hey man, there's RoboCop. Please don't
Mhm.
say my age, because then that tells you my age when RoboCop. Hey, it's RoboCop.
Yeah.
Now they probably say, are you a police officer? Because it looks like a bulletproof vest.
Mhm. Mhm.
Which now I think a black man should have that and some on my neck. Anyway, see how that's not funny, but it is. It's not funny, but so what you want to do is I did that to discipline my body
Yeah.
to be in a position to where I can win, and that's how you have to do the work. back to this starters club, finishers club. Everybody wants to start, but people don't want to do the work. So what this is, the desire, the focus, accountability, and then a fourth area, consistency. You have to consistently do successful things to
Yeah.
be successful. So you have to
Yeah.
run you can't just, if you want to run the marathon, you can't just run it one time.
Yeah.
Playing for the Bulls, you just can't come out one game and do good. You got to come out there. There were games where we win like 60, 70 games. Like you got to come out
Yeah.
and you got to win all
How
the time.
many
And
how
if you're
many NBA players do we know who were awesome in their first season and then you don't hear that much about them, right?
and even NFC season, I'm not saying had a good game. There's some people that
Yeah,
had some
even in a
good
good game,
games, but
right?
they can't win.
Yeah,
They don't
the
win
consistency is
championships.
where the greatness is. It's not in like doing something super one time.
Right.
I think about back to my son who is trying, going to be testing for his black belt very soon. One of the requirements is for him to run a mile in under 10 minutes. So we have this track that if you do 4 laps around it, that's a mile. And yesterday I took him to run, and the consistency piece of it is that he has to do this over, consistently several times a week in order to build up the. He can't just show up for
Endurance.
his black belt and like try to run it because the first time he did it with my wife, he did not make the time, and he was very upset with himself and all that. We're like, but you're not in shape yet for it,
Right.
so we got to build you up to it. So this was my first time taking him, and I watched him run, and he has a pretty good pace until he gets around the first corner, and for some reason there's something there that distracts him because I watched him. He started looking up like this and he slowed down. And then when he's finished with that part, he sped back up again, but he didn't make the time he needed to make for that first lap to
Right.
be able to make it in time. So I'm looking at him like, okay. Then he goes and he does the same thing. So he missed the time the second time. So what I do, I said, okay, he needs some accountability for this. So I got beside him and I paced him for the next run. So he was like, but I said, keep up with me, keep up. And
Right.
we ran that next round. Now I'm not in shape enough yet to do the 4 rounds, but that one round I
Right.
could speed him up. So I sped him up for it. And then he came back around. And by the time he came for the last lap, I just had to say, sprint, like call him towards me.
Right.
And then he got to me. So that idea of not trying to do it yourself, but having accountability or having somebody else who can say, hey, you're kind of off a little bit.
Right.
Here's where you need to adjust.
Right.
And then the consistency of saying, hey, we're going to have to do this more than one time a week. So what I've talked to him about is we're going to start waking up early in the morning. And I'm saying this on here so I have accountability. We're going to start getting up early in the morning and going to that track together because I need to get in shape
Right.
and he needs to practice for this.
Right.
And we're gonna do that, do those laps and get him in shape. Because what I noticed, he was able to sprint at the end of it, which meant he wasn't pushing himself hard enough
Right.
the rest of the run. So I want him to get to the point where he really,
Right.
does it, and
Right.
kills it.
So what you're actually teaching them is actually a success in life. So
Hmm.
what happens is the reason why kids and adults, this goes to everybody, thinks that you can just do this is because there's something called adrenaline. There's adrenal glands in your body. So what happens is when he takes off, he goes, "Oh, I got this," because he's running on adrenaline. But then when the adrenaline runs out, that's when the endurance takes over.
Mm.
Endurance is something that you build up over time. So that's the same thing at work is that you can get up sometimes and get this work done really quickly and get this done because you're running on adrenaline. But then to actually do things good over a period of time, you actually have to have a process. So you just outlined a process. You just said, we're going to get up at a certain time. So first of all, the desire is you want to be able to achieve the goal. The focus is what you just said. You guys are going to get up. I'm just using this time, 7 a.m. You guys are going to show up at this track. The address is this. You're going to run this. And then the accountability is you going to do it. But this is the thing. You're accountable to him, but he's accountable to you. And that's a team. And then you're going to consistently do it. So the chances of you achieving that are 100%. Now, if they just both, you and your son both said, we want to run, your son said, I want to run a 10-minute mile or 10-minute, or he wants to run for this time. And then you say, I agree. And then you both sit at home eating ice cream during the daytime. That's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
So that's why you have to do that. And then you hold them to those standards and all through.
Yeah.
And we're seeing how people are doing that. And you've heard me tell the ones about when my dad, when he had me to shoot baskets outside after every night before dinner, and we would get home from practice, and I was out in the cold. Everybody, I grew up in Minnesota. Okay, by the way, my dad's a nice guy, guys. Now, I told this story at church one time. I'm shooting baskets, and Daryl, I have an older brother. He made his shots. He goes in the house. He's sitting down. My twin sister stays out, and she's starting to help me, throw the ball back to me so I can shoot. I'm shooting from these stations. By the way, this is called around the world. You got to shoot all the way around the basket. You got to do it.
Mm,
So my sons, we do that 3 times every night. They come down here and we do this, and then we start. Then we have a shooting contest.
mhm,
I'm still winning, but anyway. So I went around. I was struggling that night, and my daddy had to hit a certain number out of 10. And so then I missed one time. Jennifer goes, "Gee, my hands are cold." She calls me by my nickname. Then she goes in the house. So it's me and my dad out there. Then I made 7 out of 10, but I had to make 8 out of 10.
mm,
And then I had this one out of 6 or 8, 7, 8. And then I boom, and I only had 7 out of 10. My dad starts walking in the house. I said, "Oh, cool." I start walking in the house behind him, and then he turns on the drop lights, the lights, on the garage. And then he
mhm.
turns around to me, and I'm looking up at him like, and I was a little kid. I was like, let's say I was like 10 or 11 years old. I was like, and he goes, "You didn't think I was going to let you off the hook, did you?" And he turns, he looks at me, he says this statement to me, and I never forgot it. He said, "If I let you off the hook right now, you'll always be off the hook."
Mm,
You know what
mm.
I did? I walked out there and said, "This dude is crazy." And I just made 10 out of 10. I just made the shots. I was like, okay, he's not, but why did I make the shots, Thomas? Because I know he's not going to, we'll be out here all night. So I'm like, let me just
Yeah,
make them.
you just got to do it. Yeah.
So my kids have already said this to me several times. "Daddy, I'm tired. I'm going to quit." Or you know what he said to me the other day? My stomach hurts. I said, "But you were upstairs and it didn't hurt. It just only hurts when you're down here
Just start
playing."
hurting when you have
Right.
to do something,
Right.
right?
And then, my wife is, when I give facts, I said, Michael Jordan scores 54 points against the Celtics with the flu. So let me check your temperature. Okay, cool. So we'll just go to 50. Okay. So you ain't got to do 57. You just do 50. And there's no Celtics out here trying to stop you right now. You can just go
Yeah,
ahead and just shoot these. But you
yeah.
understand what am I instilling? We're instilling a mindset. And then and then you guys, I know we're talking about kids a little bit today, but I want you generation, but I want you to have that same mindset where we're thinking that exact same way and in doing that.
Yeah.
Um, in that area. And then I just want to say one more, and then I just want to say one more thing. We're going to make a comment, and then I just have two more little comments.
Mhm,
All right. So first one is this. So I'm going to say this is a parting comment. 2 things. Also, you guys, one thing that I didn't do as well, and then I'm learning to do now, is celebrate along the way. If your goal, if you and your son is to run these levels, I want to say a 4-minute mile. If your goal is to do this financially, if your goal is to do this, graduate, let's use graduate right now, and you're in a 4-year institution, at the end of the first year, have a mini celebration for the first year. If
mm,
you're running and your son's supposed to do something, when he gets within whatever range he's at right now, a fourth of the
mhm.
way there, then hey, look, man, at the end of this, hey, we're going to go down and get some frozen yogurt. If he hits the weekly goal, yeah, but hit some shorter term 90-day goals and do it
Yeah,
and celebrate along the way. Don't wait till the end to celebrate completely, because
yeah,
then it's going to be so much harder to start again.
yeah,
Then my last comment is this: never quit, just pivot and just make it, change it a little bit. In other
yeah.
words, like if your goal was to graduate from, I'm going to name a private. So if you're on the East Coast, you're in the New York, New Jersey area. I'm in the Los Angeles area.
Mhm,
If so, I'm going to say the schools out here. I'm going to say I'm going to go to Penn State, school on the East Coast. One of my kids
mhm,
now, because of what's going on, they can't. Not say they're not going to college. Like some people just stop. No, no, no.
mhm.
Hey, we might just go to a community college for 2 years, then go there, or let's see what happened. And I'm going to call that pivoting. So we never quit. We just make an adjustment. Can
Yeah,
you just say that? Can you say that, everybody? I know you're in the car. You may be by yourself, driving, listening, looking, or you're saying somewhere. Just say this. Say, we do not quit. We just make an
yeah,
adjustment. I
yeah.
just want you to say it though. You have to start saying it. And we have an affirmation one, but you start saying that. I'm sorry. Another example was there was a week where Thomas got on the phone. He goes, "Hey George, how you doing?" I was like this, "Man, I'm tired. I can't do it this day." There was
Mhm,
a week where the woman called the police because a man was bird watching. Say she was weaponizing the police to say that he was a black man is following, doing attacking her. That happened on Monday. Then George Floyd happened later on the week, and we just couldn't do it. So what did Thomas and I do? Well, Thomas, I'll tell you what we did. Is
Mhm.
we didn't do that, but we made another video about
Yeah.
that same week. Did we quit? No, we adjusted. So I said,
Yeah.
I can't get up here and tell you, hey, be stuff, do this, do that, and we can't even walk in Central Park,
Yeah.
or we can't even, you know what I mean? Like and so it's like, so you just don't quit. Always, it's like you're sailing. You just adjust the sails. Don't
Yeah.
stop sailing.
Yeah.
So we're gonna keep going.
So before we continue, I want to let you know that if you have a question that you would like George to answer, it can be anything, finances, relationships, getting things done. There's a couple of ways that you can get your question to us. Click in the show notes of this episode. You can leave us a question. I talked about that earlier. You can do it right from your phone. The other thing you could do is to follow George on Facebook. That's the best way to get in touch with him. I have that link in the show notes as well. The third way is you could hit me up on any of my social media locations. I am at TZ Lucoma everywhere: Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Instagram and Facebook are the ones that I'm most active on. Uh,
T-Zilla. I'm
yeah,
gonna make him a nickname.
T-Zilla. That's right.
T-Zilla.
Yeah, exactly. So we've covered a lot of stuff today. I think one of the things that comes to mind as I was talking, I started off by talking about how sometimes I'm at work and I have like this long list of things that I had said I was going to do. It's a to-do list and so on. One of the things that I found very helpful to do, and I was having a conversation with a workmate about this yesterday. At the beginning of the year, we have objectives that we set out, and then there's the actions that you're going to try to do against those objectives. But inevitably, in my industry, what was important in January changes, by the time you get to March or April. And so, if you just stick rigidly to what those objectives said at the beginning, you actually are in misalignment with A, reality, and B, what is useful or valuable to what needs to get done. So I have this idea in my head, and I'm thinking about how you think about this kind of stuff, George. This idea of pruning. And what I mean by that is taking a look at everything that you have on your plate and saying, hey, is there anything on here which it's not the same thing as quitting, where you say, I'm not going to do that thing. It's just that this thing actually is not a valuable or strategic thing to do anymore. So I'm going to, it's similar to what you were saying of pivot. What's the equivalent of this that I'm going to do in a different way? There's an outcome. Usually there's an overall outcome. Say I'm trying to be the best employee that I can be. I'm trying to learn X or Y. The path that I had chosen to do that, it's not valid anymore. So sometimes we keep those things on the list and they bloat the list and we can't focus in on the thing which will actually get us the value. So what I found really helpful is to look at those things and then say, okay, which of these things actually still align? And the first thing. Second is, am I overloading myself with too many things? Some things can be sequenced, meaning I'm not saying I'm not going to do it. I'm just saying I'm not doing it right now because there's something else that I need to focus on more right now, and then just plan it out. That's why I think the focus part is so important, how you get strategic about getting stuff done so that at the end of the day, you start at the beginning of the year, by the end of the year, all the important things and the outcomes that you wanted, you've achieved, but the path you took may be very different from what you saw in January. So I just wanted to kind of get your thought process as I was sharing that, George.
In the Bible, it says that God uh, prunes branches or trees that are not bearing fruit, and that is a great example. Is that you want to look at what the goal is and the way that you thought you were going to achieve the goal, and look at what we need to change, because now it may be more efficient to do things a different way. So that's a great example. In doing that, I used to do. If you guys know, I used to do over 180 live seminars a year. Now I do them by Zoom, or I use other technology to do that. And I'm actually doing more than I was doing before, because it's just an efficient way, because you have to be ready to what called pivot, but then also the advantage of pruning, meaning by not doing something, it leaves room for you to be able to do the things that really matter. that help you achieve the goals. So you want to find the goals and look at outcomes as opposed to what you're doing. Like, the famous last words, that's the way we've always done it. That means you should stop. You know what I mean? Like, if you're doing things the way you've always done it, you may want to relook at things. And you should be doing that. And we want to be doing that every year, because you have to be able to change, because there's new ways of doing things that are
Yeah.
just a lot different, because we want to change the way we think to make sure we
Yeah.
achieve the outcome we want to achieve. But no, that's
Yeah,
perfect.
yeah,
We could
and I
almost,
think
yeah,
if you look at our current situation, there's a lot of people where you could look at what happened with coronavirus as all bad, but there's some positives to it because it's forced some people to look at their business model, the way that they do work. Like you were saying, your virtual meetings are actually reaching more people and getting your message out more than if you were trying to go there physically.
right,
This podcast came about because of coronavirus.
right,
Remember, because
right,
we
yeah,
were talking about how we're always on the phone with each other. Why don't
yes,
we record that and put it out so people can actually get the content that we have?
right,
And I think actually this is a time when a lot of podcasts are showing up because people realize
right.
I have content and everybody's listening because people don't have anything else to do.
Right. But Thomas, the
But
building
yeah,
generational wealth seminar was the best example.
yeah,
I was supposed to do a seminar, and I was supposed to do a conference, a financial conference
hmm
in Birmingham, Alabama on April 4th.
yeah,
And it was called Building Generational Wealth. It was one of the topics I was going to talk on. There was supposed to be, let's say, 500 people, 600 people would have come to that.
hmm
Then I sent out something saying that we are going to do it online, a webinar. Then
hmm
the people in Birmingham sent it. I said, now, by the way, a generation is 20 years, made a little promotion, and then the people in Birmingham sent it to their parents a married couple sent it to their parents in Atlanta, Georgia. And then the other spouse sent it to their parents that were up in New York, up in New York, New Jersey area. So then, instead of two people being on the call, there were six. There were over 800 people on that. That now a whole people can come from different areas. But see, I have to be willing to pivot. That's why when we had those, it's just like an opportunity for us to be able to share. So look at not. So that means that when we're doing this and while we're pruning it, we don't want to just see if we just keep doing what we're going to do, we'll just survive because it's under the current thing. We want to thrive. We got to start looking at what adjustments we make, and then
yeah,
also how we can work together. So then that changes our focus should stay the same. It just makes us change just little things that we're going to do, but we're still going to
yeah,
get the same outcome. We may
yeah,
want to do a whole topic on. I would
yeah.
like to
It's
get a
something
little
that
bit.
I believe strongly about because that's kind of how my life has been. I never had a sure path of what my career was going to be or
Right,
what I was supposed to be doing. So I've had to kind of always be attuned to what is going on. What am I good at now? What do I need to adjust to? So yeah, we'll definitely do one on that. We're out of time for today, but this has been really good.
right,
I always enjoy these conversations. So thank you again, everybody, for joining us on another episode of Set-4-Life
right.
Conversations with George. If you found value in what you heard today, there's a couple of things we'd like you to do to help us to serve you better. Number one, as I mentioned earlier, if you have a question that you want to be answered, drop a message using the link in the show notes of this episode or hit us up on social media. If you're interested in going a little deeper into any of the topics that George teaches about, one of the best ways to do that is to get one of his books from the Ready, Set, Grow series. You can find a link to that in the show notes as well. You can also work with him as a financial planner. If you are interested in that, there's details about that included as well. If you just want to learn about George in general and what he's about, check out his website at www.georgebthompson.com. Thank you once again for joining us, and we're excited to keep sharing more conversations with you. We are on this journey with you and feel like we're growing as you grow.
Great. And please let us know if there's any topics you also want to hear about. And yes, we are here for you.